Welcome to the INFOWARS Nightly News. I'm your host, Jakari Jackson. It is June 1st, 2016, and here's a look at our top stories.
Tonight, Facebook is tracking you on the web even if you don't have an account. But if you do have an account, they just changed your ad settings without your consent. INFOWARS tells you how to disable it. Then, responding to media attacks over donations to vets, Donald Trump disclosed who got the $5.6 million, including $1 million of his own money, in a press conference yesterday, and challenged the media to see how much Hillary Clinton gave. You won't believe it, or maybe you will.
What difference at this point does it make?
And a murder-suicide in L.A. locks down the UCLA campus, and police go into a de facto martial law. INFOWARS reporter Joe Biggs was live in L.A. at the time.
I heard gunshots, shut the door, locked down the whole place.
Oh, so you actually heard gunshots? It was close to you?
Yeah, I was in the building.
All that and more on tonight's INFOWARS Nightly News.
And tonight we start with some very sad news. You probably heard the story by now about the UCLA shooting. And when you talk about these type of shootings, it's always a lot of current information, changing information. So the story I tell you now could very well change by the same time tomorrow. But this is the story as of now, as of this recording, according to the LA Times. UCLA shooting, live updates, 2 dead in murder-suicide, and a note has been found. And they're saying that 2 people, both males, have been shot dead. Police are speculating that based on the appearance of the deceased, they believe that it is a professor and somebody young enough to be a student who then turned the gun on himself. They say a note was found, but they're not exactly sure what the motive was. So it's a very sad scene. Nobody wants to hear about these type of shootings. It's just type of violence that plague the country. We see recently the shootings in Chicago, as we see pretty much every big holiday weekend in Chicago. And when you have these type of shootings, of course, it shuts down the school activities. A lot of people were taking finals. The finals got canceled. There are actually other activities that were taking place that also got canceled. One of them was I don't know if you'll call it protest, but the speeches that Milo, the activist, was giving there on the campus. Now, there's a lot of interesting and downright funny videos concerning this, but due to the seriousness of the UCLA shooting, we're not going to play all those videos, but you can watch them on the Alex Jones channel on YouTube at your leisure. But now let's just talk about the Milo event. It wasn't just the shooting, but also a bomb threat that shut down the event after he had a successful speech yesterday. And it says before the event even started, groups of protesters gathered outside the art building where Milo was to speak. And of course, they shut that down for safety concerns. And as I said, you can find all those videos on the Alex Jones channel on YouTube. Joe Biggs was also there, and we'll have an update from him. It was right after the shooting at UCLA when people were starting to move about, when they took down the shelter-in-place scenario and allowed people to move freely, that he had a chance to go out and talk to some of the students out there, and you'll have a chance to look at that a little bit later. And as we're talking about this shooting, there's an interesting article by CBS News, and they show pictures of people barricading themselves in, the shelter-in-place type of scenario, and it's very scary. If you scroll down, you can see people using chairs to barricade the doors, trying to tie doorknobs to printers, anything that they could do to keep the perpetrator from getting to them. And I can only imagine what that's like. I'm sure it's a rather terrifying situation to just hope that the guy doesn't get to you in time. But as we reported earlier, it does appear to be a murder-suicide. And moving on from this hateful act to other types of hate speech, we see that Facebook refuses to remove "I want to effing kill Donald Trump" page. And this is after they signed a pledge vowing to remove hate speech within 24 hours. Yesterday, Facebook announced that it was teaming up with Twitter, YouTube, Microsoft, and the European Union to stop racist, violent, or illegal content by agreeing to review flagged posts within 24 hours and have them removed if necessary. The company has also vowed to promote independent counter-narratives that encourage non-discrimination, tolerance, and respect. And in the image, you see the choice of weapons as they're talking about how you want to kill Donald Trump, whether it's brass knuckles, a golf club, or a brick. They're saying go after Donald Trump any way you see fit. And you guys know how I feel about Donald Trump. That's well documented. But the issue is you can't threaten violence against the guy. You definitely can't physically attack him or his demonstrators or police, that matter, who protect him. And this is a common theme that I hear when I talk to these demonstrators, these anti-Trump demonstrators. They say, we feel justified to go out here and throw bricks and fire and barricades at horses and cops and hit other protesters in the head with rocks because we don't like Donald Trump. And I was like, that's completely asinine. There are many people here, you know, the pro-Trump people who don't agree with Hillary or Bernie, but they don't go out to the rallies that they have and inflict violence. And they'll always show you like some guys, you know, getting into a shoving match or a fist fight. And if you want to say that is Donald Trump's fine, I'll hear that argument. But if that's Donald Trump's fault, it's Bernie Sanders' fault. Those people sit off the right in Albuquerque. They were throwing all the things that I mentioned earlier. And once again, I don't blame Bernie Sanders for that no more than I blame a guy for getting in a fight if he's wearing a Trump hat. I don't think it's either one of their fault. But the issue is you have to have some type of accountability, and these anti-Trump people just do not have it. And honestly, they're driving people to Donald Trump when they do these type of actions. They feel justified. They're so self-righteous, these social justice warriors, to go and inflict violence on people they don't even know because they don't like a political candidate. This guy's not even president yet. And because he's a candidate nominee, they feel justified to go do this type of violence. It's completely ridiculous. It has no place, and they continue to project things onto this man that he didn't even say. Once again, not a Trump supporter, but he never said he wanted to deport Muslims. Everybody keeps saying that he's encouraging violence. I'm like, how is he encouraging violence against racial and ethnic groups? I'm not understanding this mentality that you guys keep putting out there. And they say it as if it's a fact. And I don't know if they heard it on Facebook or Twitter or wherever they're getting their information, but they completely hate on this guy for things he didn't even say or believe. If you want to talk about the wall, you want to talk about torture, you want to talk about domestic surveillance, privacy or lack thereof when it comes to his campaign, that's fine. Those are legitimate arguments. That doesn't give you the right to assault somebody, but those are legitimate arguments. But they're not doing that. They're just fighting all these phantoms and these straw men that they use to project their hate onto this political candidate. And that's a very long-winded way to talk about our next article as we talk about Facebook. And it continues with this: Facebook quietly opts users into offsite ad tracking. It says Facebook recently began tracking and serving ads to web users who don't even have an account on the social media site. In doing so, Facebook also quietly changed the ad settings of its users without their consent. And you have to watch Facebook. For me at this point, Facebook is pretty much a glorified Rolodex. I just use it if I lose my phone number or something like that. I don't do too much of my conversations on Facebook, but they always change something. It's like at least one thing a year. They'll change your settings or they'll change a policy or something else. So you have to be very careful if you do choose to use Facebook. And they have this quote from the Wall Street Journal: "Our buttons and plugins send over basic information about users' browsing sessions. For non-Facebook members, previously we didn't use it." Andrew Bosworth, vice president of Facebook's ads and business platform, told the Journal. "Now we'll use it to better understand how to target those people." A lot of people don't want to be targeted, and if you told them flat out, they would just refuse, but you're not doing that. You're using these sneak tactics to go in there and track people who aren't even members of your site when they're not even on your site. It's completely ridiculous, and they feel justified in doing so. We've all seen it. Facebook, as well as many other organizations, have been linked to the PRISM scandal. Edward Snowden told us about that. But a lot of people don't care. If you don't care, I guess it doesn't bother you too much. But for those who do care, Mikhail Thalen has some tips here that you can do to rid yourself of the Facebook machine, of the Facebook monster, and try to get away from the eye of Sauron. And you can go look at those on your own time. Now, as we're talking about privacy or lack thereof, you can't help but mention Mrs. Clinton, because we all know about the email servers, and it's even to the point where liberals won't defend her anymore. We showed you the clip last week of MSNBC where they were like, I can't believe she just continues to lie. Everything she just said is a lie. Yeah, and she's been lying for a very long time, but all you hear about is how she's so qualified and she dodges sniper fire and she cares so much about the women, even though she calls them Bills, bimbos, and all this other stuff. And some people just flat out tell you that they're voting for her because she's a woman. But I don't think that's a very good policy, but to each his own, or her own, I guess, in that case. But now we're talking about campaign donations, because this has come up in the news, because when you have all the mudslinging, they have to sling it in every which way possible. And now they're talking about charitable donations, because they keep attacking ex-candidate. You didn't give enough money to this group. You didn't give enough money to that group. You're exploiting this or that group. And now they came out with this report: Hillary Clinton has only donated $70,000 to veterans. And this is from Breitbart. The list of donations from the Clintons is not comprehensive, but it is dwarfed by Donald Trump's release of a list of 41 groups that identify donations of $5.6 million to veteran groups. So you can say what you want about the man. He said that he definitely does want to make the military big and strong, and I think he's doing that when he donates to veteran groups. I don't have any issue donating to veteran groups. It's just when you feed into that military industrial complex, that's when I get a little bit iffy. When you spend billions of dollars on these MRAPs and you leave them overseas for our enemies to use against us, I have a problem with that. And once again, that's not a Donald Trump issue. That's a previous presidency issue going back for many, many years, not just Obama, but you can talk about weapons being given to our enemies with Obama, Reagan, Bush, Bush going overseas, starting a war for nothing, yellow cake lies, all the things that they continue to do. So if we do see a President Trump or President anybody, whether it's Johnson, Clinton, Bernie, anybody else, I hope these guys take account to this and understand that you don't want to keep this military industrial complex going. It's costing the lives of our men and women. People are dying over there. They're coming back with DU poisoning, limbs blown off, PTSD, and nobody really has a good answer as to end this. And my answer would be just stop all these unconstitutional wars. Protect yourself if necessary, but don't go over and be Team America World Police. And this is my argument for that. And this is one of the few things I agree with Trump on. I'll give him this. When he talks about his foreign policy, when he talks about places like Libya and Syria, and when we think about Libya, you go in and you kill Gaddafi. We saw he died and all this. That's what she said. And now it has descended into pretty much a giant terrorist training camp with all these terror groups, fighting for supremacy. And that's the issue with it. It's just like a more simple example. Let's talk about a drug dealer on a street corner, right? You hear the adage that you arrest a drug dealer and by next week, there's another guy on that same corner because you haven't eliminated the need or the want for drugs. All you did was take one guy off the street. And when they come arrest the next guy, they're just going to put him into a prison. They're going to build another prison when that prison fills up. And you'll have the prison industrial complex going live and well. These guys are working for slave wages, making license plates, furniture, whatever it is. And then people say like, well, I don't have my $15 an hour because they're paying guys in prison 5 cents an hour or whatever they can legally pay them to make all these things that you would otherwise be able to make on the street. Like you guys saw that video. I think Josh and Zimmerman shot that video about the lady talking about she had a furniture company. I'm not sure if she produces furniture, but she moved it at least. And one of the girls in the video is like, what are movers going to do for us? Why should I move furniture? I'm like, it's a job. If you don't want to move furniture, go get a college degree or go start your own business or do something else. It's a job. If you don't want to work there, go work someplace else. But that's just the mentality of the social justice warrior. So that's a very long-winded way of saying I'm not projecting all those things I mentioned onto our current candidates. But if these candidates become our president, which at least one of them will, I hope they take these situations to heart and actually do something about them. And that's one of the stories of Mrs. Clinton. Let's talk about some medical tyranny, because beyond people trying to force things on you like vaccinations, and I'm not anti-vaccine, I'm pro-common sense. When I go to CVS or Walgreens and I ask them for an insert, and the insert says on the insert that it could give me, when I get a flu vaccine, that could give me nausea, diarrhea, vomiting, and so on and so forth. I'm like, the vaccine can make me just as sick as the flu virus. I'd rather just take my chances, drink some orange juice and eat some chicken noodle soup. But they tell you everything the hospitals do are great, fantastic, even though you can look up the statistics for yourself. There's a good chance you're going to be killed by a doctor if you do go to a hospital regularly. Now let's talk about this. No action taken against hospitals or blood banks, says the RTI activist, and this is in response to over 2,000 people getting HIV from blood transfusions in India. In the last 17 months alone, 2,234 persons across India have been infected with HIV while getting blood transfusions. The maximum number of such cases is 361, was reported from Uttar Pradesh due to unsafe blood transfusion practices in hospitals. A lot of people be quick to say that was over there and that's their issue. And I do agree that to an extent, I agree that we have tougher screening practices here. But also, as I was saying, with the vaccines and damaging the kids, killing the kids in some cases, of the World Health Organization forcing vaccines onto the kids in India, and their official policy, their official statement after all these kids died was, whoops, Johnny didn't check the label on the vaccine before he gave it to the kids. That's a completely pathetic excuse. So you have to be careful when you go to hospitals. I'm not saying hospitals are bad. I'm not saying that doctors are the devil, but they're prone to human error just like anybody else. I know they got, this $1 million degree that they paid for and they have it up on the wall and everything, but they're human just like you and me. If you're a mechanic, you've been a mechanic for 20 years, you can still make a mistake. It's the same with anybody. So just be aware of these things before you go through any type of these procedures. Now we see this, a refugee translator has been denied a visa despite helping